Hey gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, excite us, or just need an extra bit of conversation.
In this week's episode, we're talking of all things garages.
Go figure.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, we're 5 episodes in and we have just decided to talk about the thing that we named our podcast after.
True. So this week, we right that wrong. And like we said before, Garage Talk is a discussion about all things automotive. We truly want to hear back from you. So like us, follow us, tweet us on our social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GT Garage Talk.
And YouTube.
Yes, and YouTube. You can email us at gtgaragetalk@gmail.com, and you can visit our website. It's gtgaragetalk.com for more information about us, what we're into, and there are some forums there where you can give us feedback as well. So we love to hear from you on all things automotive. We really want you to join the discussion. So, my history of garages. When I turned 16, I've already shared with our listeners in episode 1 that my first car was inherited. It was my grandfather's car, and it was a 1991 Cadillac Eldorado. It was the nicest car we had in the family. My dad very much was jealous of me. It was his dad's car, but his job at the time had him driving all over East Texas. It made sense for him to keep his vehicle, and he gave me that one as my first car. I loved it. It was the Aggie Caddy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It caused me some heartache. It had some issues. It was an older car, but all that to say, because of that car being my first car, I had the privilege of getting to park in the garage from the very get-go. So again, spoiled to an extent. My brother always had to park out on the driveway or on the street, but I got to park in the garage. I hope he doesn't hold that against me. And I even mentioned when Rosita bled to death, there was a nice puddle of transmission fluid sitting right there on the garage floor. But yes, I've frequently looked back to that time of my life and been like, that was a true blessing. I had a really nice car for my first car. Started off very well, and I got to park in the garage. So we don't really have winters here in Texas, so to speak. You've lived up not even that far north of us in Oklahoma City. You've had winters.
Yes.
We have not really had true winters here, but
well, and especially this year. I mean,
right. It's teased us this year.
We got some snow flurries. I was at work, and this was like October or November, and we got a few snow flurries one afternoon during route, and everybody was excited about it. We had a driver call in over the radio asking if he needed to come put his snow chains on the bus. Just joking about it because it never stuck. But
and this was up in Oklahoma City, right?
No, this was here. Yeah,
oh,
this was here. No, my Oklahoma City winters were Our first winter there, we got 6 inches of ice and snow, and it was an inch of ice and 5 inches of snow on top of that. Right. And the rough part about that was all of the ice was insulated with that 5 inches of snow. Nice. So it was on the ground for 2 weeks.
Well, while we're on the subject of snow and Rosita, so my dad he did get a newer vehicle, and we swapped places because it was rightfully his spot in the garage to have. And I've actually got a picture of Rosita covered in snow when it actually snowed here in East Texas. Nice. So I'll hunt that picture down and share it on social media for all to see. But all that to say, I grew up, I moved into an apartment. Apartments don't have garages around here, with one exception. We'll get into that a little bit later. But parking out in the heat, that's really what we're fighting here in East Texas.
Definitely.
Is getting in the 100-degree car, and it's 1,000 degrees inside the car. And I've had many different vehicles since moving out of my parents' house, and especially since moving out of their garage, including my dream car, my Camaro. Yeah. And she never got the luxury of being pampered and getting to stay in a garage. But since then, I've gotten married, we've bought a house, and I now have my very own garage that is mine to park in, that I pay for. And I remember, so it's a 2-door garage, so independent doors for each vehicle. It's a 2-car garage for our house. And when we moved in, the garage was like the catch-all for all the boxes and everything that did not have a home yet in our home.
Yep. And
priority number 1 was clearing out a spot for my wife to have a parking spot in the garage for, again, aforementioned. It actually did snow the first year we were in our house, and our driveway is a 15-degree incline. So once you're in our house and you're snowed in, you ain't getting out. And if you get out, you ain't coming back up. But anyway, so priority number 1 was cleaning out a spot for her to park her car, get out of the rain, get out of the heat, get out of all that. And it was a few weeks later before we cleaned out my side of the garage where I could actually park in there. And let me tell you, I don't, if I knew what I know now about just remembering how spoiled I had it, the luxuries of parking in a garage and getting out of the weather are amazing, to the point where I've mentioned before on this podcast that I'm looking at some trucks. Our current garage is not big enough for a full-size truck, which is what I want. So that's actually a contributing factor. It's low on the list, but it's a contributing factor as to what I will drive next. Will it fit in our garage? Will it fit here? Because that's a luxury I just don't want to give up anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But I have noticed, especially like looking around our neighborhood, looking around my friends and other things, social media, not everybody uses their garages for cars.
Yeah.
So that leads me to ask you, Matt, what is your garage for?
So my garage, or my garage, my personal garage, similar situation. We just recently bought a house. Well, 4 years ago now, we purchased a house, and 2-car garage. They called it a car and a half garage when we moved in, and I think it's because the fireplace in the living room actually protrudes into the garage. So we can get both rigs in there, but it's pretty snug. So, but one of the rules that I had, and I told everybody that helped us move out of our apartment and into this house, was that if it did not belong in the garage, do not, under any circumstances, put it down in the garage.
Spoken like a true gearhead.
So I had several weeks there where, and I'll see if I can find the picture. I had 3 trailers in that garage at one time. One of them was a little boat trailer with my little 12-foot John boat, and then a couple of trailers that I had borrowed from a couple of wonderful friends to help move in. That was the first couple of nights. I didn't want any of the trailers leaving for some reason or another, and so
growing legs and walking away.
I managed to get them all in the garage, and that's how empty my garage was when we first moved in. I had a few tools and things like that went in the garage, but for the most part, I tried to keep it a garage where we could park in. Unfortunately,
it did not stay that way.
It has not stayed that way. My father-in-law came across some metal shelves and brought those to me, and I've got those set up on one side. My dad has brought a bunch of my stuff out of his garage, trying to clean out his garage.
It all comes full circle.
It all comes back to me. So right at the moment, I have a riding lawnmower in my garage with the trailer that I inherited. I have a couple of big tool cabinets and a workbench, and I have again inherited a table saw, a chop saw, actually two chop saws because I had one already, and then I inherited another. I have a wood lathe. I have a scroll saw. I have a bunch of stuff in my garage, and I haven't. I've been steadily working on my garage, getting it to the point of being useful.
Does Emily get to park in there currently?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Emily.
Yeah, it's we had some bad weather blow through several weeks ago, and I parked my lawnmower on the front porch so that I could get the Pilot in the garage in case we had some bad weather and it got beat up. So, yeah, sacrifice
East
for
Texas stereotype.
yeah,
Lawnmower on the front porch.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, but I'm slowly getting to the point where I can use my garage, which was the whole point of me having one, was that it was useful.
Well, you touched on something. So bad weather.
Yeah.
Some of the bad weather we had come through here. We had hail. We've had high winds. We've had like threat of straight line winds, which causes a lot of stuff falling out of trees and trees themselves falling. So Sarah Jo, my 2007 Silverado, the first brand new vehicle I bought. I was not living at home at the time that I bought her, and so therefore she did not have a garage. She had to withstand Hurricane Rita coming through East Texas.
Yeah.
And she brought with her some hail. And when I last saw her, she still had hail damage. And I felt so bad. Like, that, I had no place for her to go. It's situations like that a garage really comes in handy. And even to your point, like having to move stuff even temporarily to make it work. Cameron, my Camaro, my dream car, I had to do something even a little more interesting with her. So the church we were at the time had a covered front porch that people on days that we weren't having service, like the pastor would go up there and work in the office, he would typically park under the covered porch so that his car didn't get up to 1,000 degrees. But it was not meant for parking under. It was purely meant for standing under. Like, it did not extend over the parking lot or anything like that. It was a covered porch, but people frequently parked under there. I remember, and I've got pictures somewhere of my Camaro backed up with like a millimeter to spare between the brick wall
as far
and the
under
bumper,
as you can get it.
Avoiding hail, because by golly, my dream car was not going to have hail damage.
That's right.
Like Sarah Jo ended up with. Plus, she had a sunroof, and I did not want to have to pay for sunroof replacement.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so you and I would both agree that garages are meant for cars.
Yes.
Right? And that's not surprising. We're both gearheads. We're huge into that. But we know a lot of people. I've got neighbors just across the street from us that it's kind of their man cave, from what we can tell.
Yeah.
Anytime the garage is open, we can see there's a couch in there. I'm pretty sure there's a TV that they play games and stuff in there. I've got nothing against it. But when it comes to you parking, like, especially with car prices where they are, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 vehicles out in the elements, when you've got a piece of your house that is designed
for your car,
it's mind-boggling to me as a gearhead, as someone who loves and adores cars, that you would subject your car to that.
Well, and that's I want mine to be multi-purpose. Right. So I actually got to work out of my garage for the first time last weekend, or a couple of weekends ago. My grandfather's alternator went out,
right,
and we were actually able. He's got I think it's a 2000 model 4Runner,
right.
And with the way I've got my garage set up, I had to leave the lawnmower in the front yard, but I was able to pull his truck all the way in with, again, millimeters to spare,
squeak,
and get the garage door shut behind it. But we had room to walk around the front of it, right, and down both sides. And I had my workbench on the front of the car, right, or towards the front of the garage. And so it was great. When lunch came around, we were able to close it all up, leave, come right back,
right,
do whatever we needed to do. I've got my compressor off in a closet in the garage, so it's not as deadening when you fire that thing up. Yeah. So that was the first opportunity that I've had to really work on something in my garage and utilize my garage for what, for me, a garage is intended to be used for. I have plans for multiple projects for different vehicles. My son wants to build either a Factory 5 kit car,
nice,
or a like a 60s model Econoline van.
Okay.
Yeah, opposite ends of the spectrum for sure. Yeah, Daytona coupe or panel van. But
I have to have a talk with him.
He's 10 at the time,
Yeah.
so I mean, if he could build it out of Legos, he'd build it out of Legos and drive it back and forth to school.
I've seen a Silverado built entirely out of Legos. It didn't move.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it could happen. it could happen. But I want to be able to do that, and in either of those cases, I need space to be able to pull that in, especially if it's a big project like that, where it's ground up restoration or customization. Something to that nature where it's going to be there for a while, not just over a weekend, and be able to work on that vehicle.
Well, you and I have even got plans of moving our studio for this podcast there.
Yes,
so
and that feeds to the multi-purpose elements of it.
Right.
Yeah, I have my my drink fridge out in the garage. I mean, it's overflow for our freezer and things like that. I've got that in the garage. So yeah, hanging a TV on the wall, and a love seat in the corner, and a couple of camp chairs, and it's a man cave.
Yeah.
Or setting up a table in the middle of the room and doing some recording, and now we've got a podcast room.
And Emily still has room for.
And Emily's still got room for her car when the bad weather hits.
Yes.
So
I will say, so my garage currently is multi-purpose, and by design of whomever designed this house. So I mentioned before, it's got two separate doors, one for a his and her door, so to speak. And that in itself makes things tough because you're limited how wide you could go. And I honestly wonder, I mentioned in the last episode that I've got my eyes on a Jeep Grand Cherokee to replace her Cherokee or replace my car, whatever the case may be. But width becomes a real big consideration with our current garage setup.
Yeah.
Because not only that, you climb this 15-degree incline of our driveway, and then you make a hard right turn, and you've got to point it directly within this narrow.
You gotta whoop it.
Yeah, you got to crank that wheel, which kind of dictates who parks where, because her Jeep does not have as great a turning circle as a Jeep Wrangler would.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really got to crank that thing all the way and point it in there and get it in there right. So she
need a little Gymkhana Ken Block hop slide into the garage.
That would be awesome. But so she gets the further back one to give her more turning room. I get the front one with my Cruise. But there's another reason why I have the front parking spot, and that's our overflow fridge is sitting essentially in my parking spot. So when we cleaned everything out and made the switch to getting my car in there, which actually happened on Father's Day, my first Father's Day, I was able to clean the garage out and get Daddy's car in the garage.
Very cool.
So that's how I celebrated Father's Day, was getting to park my car in my garage for the first time. And I was so proud I took pictures. I sent it to my parents. But cleaned it out. But yeah, our overflow fridge is in my parking spot. So that's another consideration that I had to have, because I know what lines on my vehicle I use as a marker so that I don't plow into our fridge. And it absolutely makes no sense there. Me parking there, if I park wrong, you can't open the fridge side. You can open the freezer side. If I park really wrong, you can't open it at all. But and then in the corner between our water heater and our fridge is a workbench that was left behind that just has a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like she left a bunch of paint. The former homeowner left a bunch of paint on there. There's like fire ant killer. There's all kinds of stuff.
The catch-all.
Yeah. In the corner that's not at all accessible. And then the front of our garage it's like a 3-inch step that runs the entire width of the garage.
Interesting.
That keeps us from pulling up any further. And on said step are our washer and dryer. So our garage is our laundry room. It's our overflow fridge. It's our work area that I currently don't use that workbench for anything. I would very much like to, but that's in there. And then our house is pier and beam, so it's not, the slab of our garage is not the slab of our house.
Right.
So we've got another step to get up into the house through our door. And we actually have 2 doors into our house from our garage. I'm pretty sure our garage used to be a carport and they converted it into a garage.
Sense. Yeah.
Because we have 2 different doors going into our house. We only use one of them. The one we don't use, because it is not on the 3-inch raised platform at the front of our garage.
Yeah.
It actually has 2 steps leading to the door, and they butt up right next to where my wife parks. So
good thing you got plastic on the doors.
Right. Right. If you open the driver's door too fast, you're hitting a step going into a door that we don't use and leave locked 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So, like, our garage is weird, but by golly, it's my first garage. I'm proud to have it.
That's exactly
Both
right.
my cars fit in it, and I'm looking forward to cleaning it out even more, getting a usable workbench in there. I want to move the fridge from where it is. Like, there's a lot of nonsense, because from what I can tell, the pictures of our house when it was listed on the market, she used her garage for a catch-all. I don't believe she had a Ford Edge SUV. I don't believe she parked it in there. Again, width being a consideration, that hard right turn being a consideration, trying to thread the needle to get it in there.
Yeah.
And then you have to worry about that step when you open your garage door. So she used it for a catch-all. She had like her off-season clothes in there in the pictures. Like
right.
I said, it's also the laundry room, so makes sense for clothes to be in there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some massive changes in our garage as well, and making it more useful.
Well, and you made mention of something that I think not all of our listeners would completely understand, but the fact that it's almost therapeutic to be in the garage,
yes.
to work in the garage,
yes.
and
yes.
whether you're sitting there watching a football game or you're underneath the car cussing and bloody and knuckles and things like that. I mean, it's still therapy. It's that garage time
right.
that gets you away from the hassles of life and things
right.
like that, and gives you that space to just be a guy.
So we've got plans for a future episode on this topic, but car mods and what it takes to mod it yourself versus paying for it to be mod, all that stuff. But basically making your car that you bought from the factory or bought used, whatever, better. So Sarah Jo, my 2007 Silverado, the first new vehicle I ever bought, the first modification I did on that was I put a K&N air intake on it so she could breathe better. So think about like your nose when you've got cold or allergies.
Oh yeah.
That's your car from the factory. And then you pop an Allegra and all of a sudden maybe you do some Afrin or something, clear those nasal passages and you can breathe again. That's essentially the first mod I did on my truck. The second mod I did required me to have a garage at a time when I did not personally have a garage. I was living in an apartment. And so I mentioned before, when I had that truck, I was working at a small family-owned swimming pool store. The back side of the store was actually like our warehouse. There was a huge garage door back there where we had a forklift that I truly enjoyed driving. And
yep.
It was rear wheel steering, so driving it forward was like driving any car backwards.
Yeah.
And it made me like Mater from Cars. I'm the world's best backwards driver. So, sorry, I've got a 2-year-old. In fact, happy birthday, Tucker. This show drops on your second birthday, so happy birthday, Tucker. Daddy loves you. So anyway, he's big into cars, so I had to throw a Mater reference in there.
Absolutely.
Where I could. But anyway, all that aside, so we backed the forklift out. We pulled my truck into essentially a swimming pool store warehouse. We had our workbench there for working on pool pumps and various different pool parts that came in to see us. And that's where we got the saw out, and I made someone else do this, but I put a new exhaust on it myself. It was self-install. It was the cheaper way to go because you're not paying someone else's labor to do it.
Oh yeah.
But so we lifted it up just a little bit, jacked it up in the front. But in order to get the old exhaust off, a saw was involved. And like I said, I made one of my friends pull the trigger on that. I could not make myself destroy, temporarily as it may have been, my first brand new vehicle. So that was an interesting experience. But again, going to that idea of camaraderie while working in the garage, wherever it may be, whatever type of garage it may be.
Oh yeah.
It was a truly good experience. And like I said, we've got plans for a future episode, talking all things car modifications, working under the hood with friends, with family, and so that is a definite future episode for us. But many good memories in
Absolutely.
the garage.
I think another episode we should do. We introduce our show with "Hey Gearheads,"
right?
The discussion about what makes somebody a gearhead,
right?
What it is to be a gearhead, and I think that points to time in the garage, right?
Right.
Man, you can build some awesome friendships.
Yes, you can.
Working under the hood of a vehicle.
And you've definitely got me beat by several miles on the working on cars things, because when it comes to working on my own cars, it really has been just intakes and exhausts. It hasn't been anything crazy. I have not. I haven't even replaced spark plugs, even though I know that I could and how to. Like, I've got the knowledge. I just haven't, because my current juncture in life, I'm blessed to be able to take it to a shop, have someone professionally do it. It's warranted, and I could be at work, my day job, while they're fixing it, and keep my weekends for family time. I'm not knocking anyone who does it themselves. I very much would like to be at a point where if I wanted to, I could.
Yeah.
That's just not the stage of life that I'm currently in.
So I'm on the opposite side of that spectrum.
Right.
And you notice, for those of you watching on YouTube, I am still donning my Ford hoodie today.
Yes.
But I have to admit, it was a little bit reluctantly that I put it on this morning.
Oh, dear.
Ask me why, Corey.
Why? Why was it so reluctant for you to put on your Ford hoodie this morning, Matt?
Because my wonderfully terrible modular 3-valve 5.4 from Fomoco decided that it wanted to chuck a water pump this week. And while I do work for the transportation department at a school district, it does not completely lend me the ability to pull my vehicle in and work on it on the clock, kind of a thing. So at 9 o'clock on Tuesday evening, I began the process of changing the water pump on my pickup.
9 o'clock p.m.
Yes.
You began.
Tuesday evening.
Oh,
yes.
Fun stuff.
And unfortunately, it was Wednesday morning before I finished.
Ouch.
I was doing other things than just the water pump. I had an oil leak for a while that I knew about. I already had the part for it, so I went ahead and fixed that while I was under there. But yeah, my Ford has failed me again. Thankfully, my wonderful uncle let me borrow his truck in the meantime.
Nice.
And we were able to get back and forth to work and deal with that issue. But
I was smiling real big the entire time you were telling that story. But just last month, I dropped a pretty penny fixing my vehicle, going, again, the other route. I took it to a shop. My dad lent me his car. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
For the couple of days that it was in the shop. But apparently it was a pretty massive repair. The problem wasn't massive, but modern vehicle design, they had to drop the engine, they had to take the transmission off, all of which took time and labor, which cost money. But I'm very grateful for the individuals at the shop that fixed it. I'm very grateful for my dad. Let me borrow his car in the meantime. And that I could have saved even more money had I been able to do that myself. You alluded to not being able to do it for work, but when I was in high school, I was taking automotive classes here locally, and it was actually a joint program through junior college here in town. state-of-the-art facility. It was brand new at the time. They've added on to it since. But the program was just getting started.
Yeah.
So curriculum hadn't really been developed. And our first, I'll call him professor. He was not professor. He was an old mechanic that got this job. Pretty much weekly, we would get to pull different students' vehicles in and do this, that, or the other on it. We did oil changes. I can't remember if we ever rotated tires. I've alluded to, I turned rotors on brakes. So I've gotten my hands dirty. I wouldn't say I've bloody knuckled anything, but I've gotten under the vehicle. I've done some stuff. That was a truly fun class because, I mean, class was in the garage.
Oh, yeah.
And if I could do that part of my life over again, I probably would have leaned a little heavier into that side of things.
I've got a buddy who lives in Kansas, and he went through some automotive classes through high school, and they did just that. So if there was somebody, so that it wasn't direct competition with the other shops in town, if there was somebody, either a student or a teacher on campus, who had an issue with their vehicle, needed spark plugs changed, needed brakes done, something like that, as long as they provided the parts, they would actually do the work in shop class as a part of the curriculum.
That's awesome.
It's a great little way of supporting the community, as well as being able to learn and do regular maintenance items that so many people either don't know or don't get the opportunity to learn these days.
Right. And so that's a great segue. Like, we've alluded to the feedback we've gotten to this point. As of this recording, we only have 2 episodes live and out in the public. This is our 5th episode, but we've already gotten tremendous feedback from you, our listeners, from our friends, from our coworkers, on all things automotive, which is exactly what this podcast is supposed to be, a discussion about all things automotive. And so some hopes and prayers and dreams of Matt and I is that we can give back in that way.
Absolutely.
That we could build not only a community of listeners to our podcast, but a community of people willing to give back to those in need of car repairs, car parts, this, that, or the other. And that would be our ministry through this podcast. And so that's something we're praying towards. That's something that we're working on the business side of things, growing this podcast. That's why we ask for your feedback. We want you to share it with friends. We want this thing to grow to be huge for the sake of helping others.
Absolutely. And any opportunities that you know of also, if there's a shop in your area that would be useful or could be useful, if you own something like that would you would be interested in opening up to.
Yeah, let us know. We'll put it out there for our listeners. We've got listeners in many different states. It's fun watching new people come on board, new states and cities come on board as I'm looking at the analytics on the backside of things. And I'll shoot Matt text messages like, do you know anybody here?
Yeah.
Is this you? Is this me? Who is this? And so we truly do appreciate our community, our listeners. We want to give back. We want to build this into something truly awesome. So, like, we plug our social medias, we plug our website in every episode, but one thing that we're currently working on now is a way for you to give back to the show and to help build the community. Working on a Kickstarter campaign to help us to be a little more mobile. Currently, our studio is in the back room, sound closet at our church. We want to go mobile so that we can record more up-to-date live episodes instead of binge recording multiple episodes in one time, so we can have more real-time feedback to you, our listeners, from your feedback, and truly get that on the air in a timely manner.
It makes us more versatile. It makes us where we can go to shows and things like that and then quickly set up and tear down and be able to have a little more interaction with you, our listeners.
And I'm working on a Patreon as well, so we're working on many different opportunities for you to be able to give back, and there will be some bonus content that comes with it. We've got things in the plan to truly grow this brand, grow this opportunity for both of us, and like I said, it's an opportunity to give back to you, our listeners, to the communities around us. Many of y'all have seen we have a new logo now. Thank you to eGuide Magazine for helping us with that new logo. It looks amazing. Makes us look legit, even though, like I said, we're recording in a sound closet as of right now. But like I said, future plans to truly record in a garage and be Garage Talk. You can give right now through our anchor.fm/GT Garage Talk is our podcast hosting site. There's an option to give back there. And really that is the future of this podcast and where we want to take it. We want to grow it to be something that is not only entertaining, but gives back to the community around us.
Absolutely. And another of the segments that we want to spin off of Garage Talk itself is a tech talk, and we may even call it Garage Talk Tech Talk.
Yeah.
Just a minute, a brief opportunity for our listeners to chime in with some questions, some automotive things, some automotive issues that they may be having with their vehicle. And for our first one, I had a guy text me. We're doing this on the fly. Cory doesn't know I'm going to do this. I had a buddy in Oklahoma City text me. Shout out to Patrick. He texted me with some questions about his Silverado. It's got the 5.3 engine in it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, I had a question for you. What does it take time and money wise to rebuild a 5.3? Should it be done? Things like that." And I said, "Well, it depends on if you're adding parts to it or if you're just needing to rebuild it." So I got a little more detail from him about it to find out what brought him to the conclusion that he needs to rebuild it. And primarily it's a few oil leaks and some coolant leaks. And so my suggestion to him and my suggestion to any of our listeners dealing with the 5.3 is there are so many 5.3 liter engines out there, LQs, LSs. Just go find another one.
Yeah.
Junkyards, usually, Facebook, Craigslist, things like that, $500, sometimes closer to $1,000 if they have a harness with them. I've seen 4L60 transmissions and 5.3s together with harnesses go for $1,000. So there's plenty of opportunity out there inexpensively to be able to get yourself back up and on the road in a fairly inexpensive and quick manner versus having to rebuild one. Right.
And you've even mentioned you love your current Ford truck. Like, you just don't love the engine that's in it. And so many people are in that boat. They love the vehicle, the style of it, the utility of it, the history of it.
Absolutely.
I name my cars. We dove into that in episode 2, and we're getting great feedback on that one.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you name a car, it becomes a little more personal at that point. And so, that's what we want to be here for. And that's where the spinoff and various different opportunities and ministries for us will come into play. But can't do it without you, our listener. And so we thank you for listening. We thank you for subscribing. There are big things planned for the future of this podcast outside of just our voices, planning on a big presence on YouTube as well, but that is all in the future, and we look forward to it. But in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GT Garage Talk. You can email us, gtgaragetalk@gmail.com, or you can visit our website, gtgaragetalk.com. I made it very simple for us.
It's all GT Garage Talk.
It's all the same. So just look for GT Garage Talk and you'll find us. But get us your thoughts and opinions. Especially on this episode, our question of the week is, what does your garage look like? What is it for? Do your cars go in your garage? Do you even have a garage? Do you aspire to having a garage? Is it your shop? Is it your catch-all? What does your garage look like? So be sure and share your stories, thoughts, and opinions with us online. And even on top of that, share your car questions with us.
Absolutely.
We didn't even solicit for that, and within the first episode dropping, we are already getting car questions and car feedback, and we truly adore it. That is what we want this to be, a discussion about all things automotive.
It It is. So. And we're available everywhere now.
Yes.
YouTube, all of the podcast platforms.
Yeah, so we're on Google, we're on Apple, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, we're
Pocket
on
Cast,
Breaker. Yes, we're on all of them, but the one that hosts it all is Anchor.fm, and there are links to all the different ways in which to listen to us there. But I believe that's all for us this week. We look forward to speaking to you next week on a very fun and passionate conversation on our dream cars, what they are, just diving into dreaming big a little bit next week. So look forward to hearing back from you on all things, and until next time, bye.